Hi everybody, I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps. Today I'm going to show you how to make the beach day scarf. This video goes along with a full written pattern which includes a chart. I'll be referencing the chart throughout the video. You can get the pattern and the chart at the link in the description on this video if you're watching it on YouTube, or on my blog post if you're watching it on my blog. I'll be using Cascade Hampton yarn in the colors Tile Blue and Chrysanthemum. Cascade did provide this yarn for free for this design. Before we get started, let's take a brief look at the chart. The first thing you might notice is these two sections that are highlighted in blue. Those are the color B sections, and on the actual chart online, those symbols are in blue, but I only have a black and white printer, so I print it in black and white and just go over it with a highlighter. You can do the same thing if you only have a black and white printer. Up at the top of the chart, there's a key, and again, this symbol would be in blue to show color B. This key will tell you what each of the symbols on the chart means. The chart is worked over 35 stitches. There are 4 stitches here in this repeat, which is worked 8 times, so that makes 32, 33, 34, and 35. So you'll want to cast on 35 stitches, and you can use any cast on you like. I used a long tail cast on for the sample, but if you have another cast on you prefer, go ahead and use that. After casting on with color A, you're going to make 4 rows in garter stitch. I'm not going to show that part on the video because it's just knitting every stitch. This symbol means to knit on the right side or purl on the wrong side, and since row 1 is a right side row, you're going to knit every stitch on the right side. This symbol means to purl on the right side or knit on the wrong side, and since this is a wrong side row, you're going to knit every stitch on the wrong side. So you do that twice, and that makes 4 rows of garter stitch. Where the video is going to pick up is with row 5. This begins our first drop stitch section. Then after that drop stitch section, there is a eyelet rib lace section. Within that lace section, there is a 4-row repeat that you're going to work 3 times. So this eyelet rib lace section actually has 6 rows with eyelets in them. So you'll have 6 little yarn overs going up in a row. And it's worked from row 9 through row 24. Once you're done with both one drop stitch section and one eyelet rib section, you're going to repeat those 2 sections a total of 16 times. And then one more time, do another drop stitch section just to give us symmetry for the scarf. And we finish just like we started with 4 rows of garter stitch. So let's get started down here with a repeat of row 5. I've worked most of the scarf and I'm on my last repeat now. For row 5, we're going to start by changing to color B, and then again it's just knitting every stitch all the way across the row. Let's start by changing colors. I've inserted my needle to knit. I have cut my tail of color A, leaving a tail to weave in later, and I'm folding a loop of color B, also leaving a tail to weave in later. I put that loop onto my needle and I knit with it, and it's going to be a little bit floppy, so let's secure those ends. I'm going to insert my needle into the next stitch to knit because I'm just knitting every stitch this row, and I'm going to grab both of those tails. I'm going to give it a nice tug and place it over my needle to help lock it in place. Hold it there. Now when I knit this stitch, it brings my working yarn underneath. Do you see how that's underneath those 2 strands? And then when I knit the next stitch, normally it brings it over and it locks those 2 strands in place for me. So that will help keep this edge less floppy, and if it does get floppy, you can just pull on whichever strand is floppy. So I'm going to knit every stitch on this row. And that is row 5. On row 6, this symbol with the 2 in it means to knit 1 and then yarn over twice. So for every stitch that we knit in this row, right up until we get to the end, we're going to knit a stitch and then yarn over twice, knit a stitch, yarn over twice, all the way to the end, and then just knit that very last stitch. So that's going to put 2 yarn overs after every knit stitch all the way to the end of the row on this row. And that seems like a lot of increases, but don't worry, we're going to be dropping them on the next row. That looks like this. knit one, and then yarn over once and yarn over twice. Knit one, yarn over once, yarn over twice. I'm going to keep doing that to the end of the row. Coming to my last couple of stitches, I knit one, yarn over twice, and then knit the last stitch. And that's the end of that row, and you can see just how many stitches I've piled onto the needle here, but a lot of those are going to get dropped in the next row. On row 7, remember I told you we'd be dropping all of those yarn overs? That's what this D means. So we're going to knit the first stitch, because that was just a regular knit stitch, and then the D means drop 2 yarn overs and knit. So we're going to drop the extra 2 yarn overs we made here and then knit the stitch. Drop the yarn overs, knit the stitch. Drop the yarn overs, knit the stitch, all the way to the end of the row. I knit the first stitch, okay, and then you can see these yarn overs, they have nothing underneath them. They're not a full stitch. See, the stitch has something underneath it? So that's how you know those 2 are yarn overs. So we're going to drop those 2 yarn overs and just drop them off your needle, and then knit the next stitch and drop those 2 yarn overs. You're going to have a lot of floppiness. Don't pull on anything yet. Wait till you're finished with the whole row, and then we're going to pull on it and it will all open up. So drop 2 yarn overs, knit the next stitch. Drop 2 yarn overs, knit the next stitch. And we keep doing this all the way across to the end. I'm nearing the end. I drop 2 yarn overs, knit the next stitch, drop 2 yarn overs, and knit that very last stitch. Now, when we give this a little bit of a tug, you can see that all of those yarn overs made our stitches nice and tall, and they're all nicely even because they're all 2 yarn overs worth of extra yarn. And when we block this, it's going to look a lot like that with these nice big loops. Row 8 is again just knit every stitch all the way across. It's a wrong side row, so we're just going to knit all the way across. And this is a great time to count your stitches to make sure you still have 35 and you didn't accidentally drop a stitch. Rows 9 through 11 are just 3 rows of garter stitch, but it's in color A. So first I'm going to change to color A, and then I'm going to knit every stitch all the way across for 3 rows. Just like last time, I'm going to cut the previous color, leaving a tail to weave in. I insert my needle to knit into the first stitch, and I place a loop of my new color on my needle. Bring that loop through, and then snug up the tails here to make it less floppy. And then I like to secure the tails in the next stitch, so when I insert my needle to knit, I will pull those tails over the needle nice and tight, knit the stitch, bringing that loop under those tails. Okay, and then when I knit the next stitch, my working yarn goes over the tails and that secures the tails. And it just keeps it from getting quite so floppy at this edge here. And then I'm just going to keep knitting, and I'm going to knit for 3 rows, and then I'll come back to you. I've knit 3 rows, and I'm on a wrong side row now. You can tell it's a wrong side row because you see these overlapping bumps from the color change. When you're on the right side row, that color change is nice and smooth. Row 12 is our first eyelet lace row. We're going to start by knitting a stitch. This is a wrong side row, so we start by knitting a stitch. Then we do a yarn over. Then we do this double center decrease on the wrong side, which is a slip 2, knit 1, pass 2 slip stitches over the knit stitch. And I'll show you how to do that. And then we do another yarn over. So this decreases by 2 stitches, and we have 2 yarn overs, so that offsets the 2 stitches that are decreased. The repeat then is yarn over decrease, yarn over knit, yarn over decrease, yarn over knit, and we keep doing that all the way till we get to the last 2 stitches. We'll do 1 final yarn over, and then we're going to knit 2 together on the wrong side. So this is a knit 2 together on the wrong side. It makes a little purl bump on the right side. Let's start with our knit 1. Then we do a yarn over, and now we're going to do our double decrease. We slip 2 stitches together knitwise. So I'm inserting my needle like I'm going to knit through both of these stitches together. That's going to twist them around, okay? So I insert my needle like that through both of those and slip them. Then I knit the next stitch, and remember I'd done a yarn over, so this yarn's going to cross over my needle to get to the back to make that yarn over. Knit that stitch, then I take these two that I slipped and I pick them up with my left needle and I carefully pull them over that stitch that I knit. So now I have my knit one, my yarn over, and my centered decrease. Now I'm going to yarn over again and knit one. And that's my repeat. Let's do it again. Yarn over, centered double decrease. So slip two together, knit one, pass the two slipped stitches over the one that you just knit, yarn over, knit one, yarn over, decrease. Now it's very easy to get lost in this stitch pattern, so make sure that you're alternating between your decrease and your knit one, otherwise your stitch count will get off, and you can check that in the next row. So one more time, yarn over, knit one, and I think that's actually, yeah, that's the end of the repeat. So let's start a new repeat. Yarn over, decrease, yarn over, knit one. I'll meet you back at the end of the row. I'm at the end of this last repeat. I just did that yarn over and I knit one. And now for these last two stitches, I'm going to yarn over and knit two together. And that is the end of row 12. Row 13 is a basic ribbing row. We're on the right side, so it starts with a purl stitch and then knit one, purl one, knit one, purl one, all the way across to the end. Notice that the purl stitches always line up on top of the stitches from the previous row, whereas the knit stitches line up on top of the yarn overs. So you're going to purl into every stitch and knit into every yarn over as you do this row. We start with a purl one, and that was that first stitch at the end. Now you can see that this one's a yarn over because there's nothing underneath it. So I'm going to knit into that one, purl the stitch, knit the yarn over. Remember to pass your yarn between your needles when you're switching from purling to knitting and knitting to purling so that you don't accidentally add a yarn over. I will get to the end of the row and come back. I'm down to my last two stitches. I knit one, purl one, and that is the end of row 13. And you can see the lace pattern starting to form here. So let's go on to row 14. Row 14 is similar to row 12, except it's sort of flipped the other way like a mirror image, so that we're staggering where the stitches, where the decreases versus the knit stitches line up. The yarn overs are not staggered. They are going to go in a straight line, straight up and down. The yarn over will be directly above the previous yarn over. But notice that this decrease is above where we did a knit stitch last time, and this knit stitch is above where we did a decrease last time. So that's going to give us that diamond effect that we've got going. So we're going to start, here we ended with a decrease, here we're going to start with a decrease, and this time it's going to be a slip slip knit. So this is a slip slip knit on the wrong side. Then we, for the repeat, we yarn over, knit one, yarn over, and do that same centered decrease we did before. So before, where we went yarn over, decrease, yarn over, knit one, now it's the other way around. We're going yarn over, knit one, yarn over, decrease. And we do that all the way this time to the last stitch because we did our decrease early, okay? And we're going to yarn over and just knit our last stitch. I start with a slip slip knit, which means I slip this stitch knitwise, and then I slip this stitch knitwise, then I stick my left hand needle back into them, and you can see I'm already in position to knit, so I go ahead and knit through those two stitches. That is a slip slip knit decrease. Now I'm going to yarn over and knit one, yarn over and work a decrease. And now you'll be able to tell if you're in the right spot for the decrease, because the decrease will always be worked over what was a yarn over, another knit stitch, and then a yarn over. So if you see that this is starting here, then you know you're in the wrong place. It needs to start with a yarn over and then a stitch and then a yarn over. So here's the decrease again. We slip 2, we knit 1, and we pass the 2 slipped stitches over. Okay, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over, and again for the decrease you can see it's a stitch with a yarn over on each side. So slip 2, knit 1, pass the 2 slipped stitches over. And I'm going to continue that all the way to the end of the row and meet you back again. I'm on my last repeat. I just knit 1, so I yarn over, work the decrease, yarn over, and knit the very last stitch. And that is row 14. Row 15 is an exact repeat of row 13, so we've already done that. And then we're going to repeat rows 12 through 15 2 more times, so we'll have worked them a total of 3 times. After we do that, we'll have 6 yarn overs, right? Because we've got 2 here and we're repeating it 3 times, so you will see 6 yarn overs in a row. And after you do that, the next wrong side row, you're just going to knit every stitch, and that will finish this lace section. I finished those 3 repeats and then knit that last row, just knitting every stitch. And you can see that in each column of eyelets, I have 6 eyelets. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that is the eyelet rib section done. For the remainder of the scarf, we're going to repeat this whole section that we've already done. So the 4 rows of the drop stitch section, and then this whole section of lace with the 3 repeats and everything, all of that, and we'll alternate drop stitch, ribbing, until we've done it a total of 16 times. Once we've done that a total of 16 times, we'll do the drop stitch section just 1 more time, and then we're going to do 4 more rows of garter stitch to finish off. Here's my final drop stitch section, which is just the repeat of rows 5 through 8. Now I'm going to change colors and work 4 more rows in garter stitch with color A, and that will finish the scarf. Once again, I'm going to change colors just like before. Use a loop to knit that first stitch. Get some nice and big. And then I'm going to grab my tails and pull them nice and snug. Bring them over my needle when I'm knitting the second stitch. And lock them in place. And I will knit 4 rows of garter stitch. This is the end of my last row of garter stitch. And all that's left to do is bind off. Now I finished on a wrong side row, so we'll be binding off on the right side. And I am going to use one of my favorites, which is a decrease bind off, but you can use any bind off you like, whatever matches your starting edge or whatever you feel like doing. So for the decrease bind off, I'm going to work a knit 2 together. And then I'm going to place this stitch back on the left needle. Knit 2 together. And when I place the stitch back on, I'm inserting my needle from the back to make sure the stitch doesn't get twisted. So every time that I work a knit 2 together, I'm turning 2 stitches into 1, and then I'm putting that stitch back on this needle, so that has bound off 1 stitch. And you want to keep your bind off kind of loose because this is a lace pattern, so it's going to stretch a lot with blocking. Now after I do my last knit 2 together, when my left needle is empty and I have 1 stitch left on my right needle, instead of moving that one over, I'm going to cut my yarn, leaving a tail. And I'm going to pull that loop up until the tail comes all the way through, and my scarf is bound off. All that's left to do now is weave in all of these ends and then give it a good wash and block it and really stretch it, because that will open up this lace and make it extra beautiful. And that's how you make the beach day scarf. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, or leave me a comment. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great videos. Thanks for watching.